Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee and No Code. The difference today is inside this cup is not coffee, it's tea. I'm recovering from whatever's been going around my kids' school. And I guess welcome back viruses, the standard ones, which is great to see. So today it's really exciting. As I mentioned last time, we're going to be spending the month on codeless architecture and what it means in practice and how to actually apply it to solve real world problems. With that, I'm delighted to bring one of our superstars of Unqork today. So, Odile, if you could, real quick, Odile, give your background to the audience.
Absolutely. Hi everyone. My name is Odile Aslan. I'm a lead sales engineer at Unqork. I focus on the financial services industry. So prior to Unqork, I started off my career as an entrepreneur and worked in various industries and the SaaS ecosystem, including the advertising technology as well as in the application performance monitoring industry, until I joined the no code revolution at Unqork 2 years ago. I'll be showing you the platform today, and I'm super excited to be here.
And when you first joined, I think you were during COVID locked in. Was it Paris that was locked down at that point?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. I was locked down in a studio in Paris.
yeah, that doesn't sound bad, by the way. That's but that's
That
so
was actually
so
really
so
nice.
Yeah. So with that, I've gotten to see Odile in action in front of clients. And so clients challenge us with the most complex tier one problems, the things no one else has solved. And I've seen her deliver those solutions right in front of them. So today we're going to have a little bit of fun. The focus of today is going to be on orchestration. So what does orchestration mean to you? It's probably different for everyone. It could start with the word BPM, business process modeling and process modeling. And you could think about it from the designs of a process on paper. And I've been in those companies where, you model the process and it spans an 8-foot wall and you got to roll out the paper. And then how do you implement that in a system? And the goal of BPM and all the modeling around it has always been make people more efficient, track statuses, track tasks. What I've seen it achieve is, human to human interaction, but it always fails when it tries to do more. And every single solution and vendor product and custom build has always kind of lacked the ability to do what I'd call the human to machine to human to, and that's the real world. That's what it means. And what it means is complex orchestration, complex needs. And it's easy when things are simple. I start it, Odile finishes it, done. That's a two-step process. But what does it mean when it's actually more complex? And most importantly, how is that achieved in a codeless architecture, where the glue around that architecture, which is Unqork in this case, is actually holding it all together and holding the process together? And how is it achieved in a way where the businesses and their technology partners could start to think about their processes holistically? So could we have a single onboarding process regardless of product across the entire company, regardless of which state or region or country it's in, regardless of product? And with that, so we're gonna jump in, and everything you're going to see today, and if you've ever done your own demo for your clients or for your teams, it's always that risk when things are live. This is 100% live and real-time build from scratch. So no pre-recording. This is it. What you see is so I'm not putting a lot of pressure on Odile. To me, I'm going to sit back and actually have my cup of tea and enjoy. But Odile, let's start off with what's the use case. Let's describe a real world use case that you've seen, and then let's talk about how we actually jump in and build it.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Gary. So, as mentioned, I focus on the financial services industry, and as you can imagine, we work on various use cases with our clients. And one of the most challenging flows, and as Gary mentioned, that we really consistency clients struggle is really to implement account and entity onboarding flows. And this is true for any types of clients, and it could be in asset management, banking, wealth management. And our observation is it's also true for other verticals. The reason why it's so challenging is because typically you have to have one specific flow with its own reflexive logic per account or entity type. And the issue with traditional approaches, when leveraging code, even low code, is that you're creating that legacy that makes it very, very difficult to scale it from one application to even one other variation. And the reality is there could be 25 different, account types. So as a result, it typically takes months, sometimes a few years to get there. So today, what I will do is I will show you how we very, very easily solve this in Unqork. I will create 2 variations of a dynamic workflow and show you how we can scale an application dynamically and in a matter of minutes. Also important to note, I will create everything from scratch, as Gary mentioned. So I'll show you, of course, the backend of Unqork, but also you'll see how quick it is to create an end-to-end application. So with that, let's, sorry, go ahead, Gary.
No, that's awesome. I'm excited to see this. I would also like to just call out, like when we started, we didn't have this concept of orchestration, process flows. And so it was our clients that basically drove this, specifically the amazing leaders like Richard Turley and Goldman, who said, you're going to need to actually be able to orchestrate this back in 2017, early 2018. So this has been a journey we're on. And like what we ask each of you to do, we first look to see what could do this, what's out there today, what open source, what products, what vendor products, what's in the space, because we would always love to license and use versus create. In this case, we created from scratch everything you're going to see. So it didn't exist, and it's a brand new concept. So with that, Odile, take it away. Let's start the screen share and let's get going.
Perfect. All right. So we've started screen sharing. So what you see right now is the backend of Unqork. So this is typically where we go and build applications. So the backend is structured in what we call the workspaces. So the workspaces are these rectangles here that allows you to organize your different projects and applications. So what I'll do here is I'll just create a brand new workspace, and I'll call this onboarding workspace. And within my workspace, what I can do is I can start and create as many applications as I want. And for our use case here, what I'll do is that I'll create an account onboarding use case for a wealth manager. So what I'll do is I'll call this wealth onboarding app. And the beauty of Unqork is that when you configure an application, your backend is configured separately from the front end. So you can get as complex as you want with operations as complex as they could be. But what you can do is that you can align with any design palette and align with any CSS style sheet to really completely match your application design. So what I'll do here is I'll take one of the style sheets that we have here, and you'll see when I preview the application, it will automatically embed the style sheet within my app. In terms of application type, I can select the module type of application or the workflow type of application. So the module really is a screen that the end user is seeing when they interact with the application. And it can also be just a task that is run on the server side, and that would not be visible to the end user, but really to leverage the power of the server to execute some of the more complex decisioning calculations and potentially API connections as well. Now, the workflow, which is obviously what we'll leverage today, is a group of these modules that are grouped together. And really the beauty of the workflow is that you're seeing the flow of the application as well as the decisioning of the application just by looking at the workflow. So what you see on the screen right now is the canvas of the workflow. And what I can do is I can just take any of the nodes that you see on the left-hand side and drag and drop them into the workflow canvas. So for our workflow, what we'll do is that we'll create a 2-step workflow as part of our wealth onboarding process. However, and this is really the beauty of Unqork, what I'll do is I'll go back to the flow and just change that. And you'll see how, nothing is rigid in Unqork. So it's very easy to change, any of your application, decisioning, and so on. And before I get to the actual build, I'll also introduce you to some of the nodes that we see here. So here you have a number of different gateway nodes. So those are really here to define the complexity and the decisioning of the application. As part of the application build, I'll also leverage the exclusive gateway here. In addition, very important to note, so our platform is really event-based. what you could do is just waiting for a signal to really trigger the execution of a workflow. Maybe you need to perform ETL operations to just digitize a lot of Excel heavy processes and so on. Maybe you'll need to trigger a workflow at a specific time or at a specific frequency. So those are options that you can leverage in addition to the regular sort of start node.
And Odile, like that last swim lane, the automated swim lane, is where like a lot of the magic happens, because a lot of times these tools, the workflow tools, really the human to human are done correctly, but then the human goes out to a swivel chair, goes to another system, pulls data back. And so then you have to basically say, oh, let's automate that and integrate those systems. And what that means is you're building APIs, you're building ETL, as you said, extract, transform, load processes. In our case, it's all together in one process. So that automated versus manual is all just simply two different swim lanes that you could basically map together.
That's exactly right. And in fact, Gary, talking about the swim lanes, in all of our workflows, we have swim lanes that really allows you to identify the role or the persona that will have access to the specific screen. So as soon as I click on edit on that swim lane, I'm able to assign a specific role to have access to these two screens that I just dragged and dropped. So typically what we do is we connect, we have various options to connecting to your user directory, but for example, single sign-on via SAML or OpenIDC, we would get all of the entitlements to facilitate the authentication, but also to know exactly what all of your users have access to. And depending on your application, we can add as many swim lanes as we want and define really a role-based access control application from here. Perfect. So on the first screen, I'll just call this entity information. I'm selecting the static type of screen, and we will gather some of the basic entity information here. On the second screen, I'm going to create a screen to gather, retirement account type information. And from here, I'll save the workflow. So obviously, we don't see it, but in fact, what happens in the backend as soon as we click Save Workflow is, again, really unique to Unqork because since we have no code, there is no such things as compiling the code. The application, potentially you could preview it right now. Of course, we would need to ingest it with fields and configure the backend. But because you're not compiling the code, our renderer is really, interpreting all of that drag and drop functionality into a pixel perfect application already. Perfect. So what I'll do here is I'll just go ahead, pin this tab to preview the application, and I'll start configuring the backend of the first screen. So this is the entity information screen. We'll want to gather some of the entity-specific information. On the left-hand side, you'll see all of the components that I'm able to drag and drop into the platform. And you have various types of components together, basic or more advanced information. But really, what makes us so unique is also this data and event processing fields that allows you to perform, operations as complex as they may be without writing a single line of code. So the decision component allows you to perform if and then statements, again, of course, without code. The plugin component allows you to connect to APIs. Calculators allows you to embed any Excel type of formulas, and data workflow is what allows you to perform ETL operations. In addition to the components, we also have snippets. So, working with enterprises, what we see is that there's a lot of, components or flows that are leveraged together. And so we thought, instead of having to reconfigure everything consistently from scratch, we want to give the ability also to creators to build something just once and to be able to then save it as a snippet. So in addition to you being able to save components as a snippet, you can also drag and drop snippets from our marketplace. And so one of the components that I will want to drag and drop here is the Glyph API snippet. So this snippet embeds an integration to the Glyph API to return some entity-specific information. So as part of your flow, what you could do is you could ask, your clients to enter all of the information sort of one by one, or you could leverage, some of our snippets here to really accelerate the process of building your application. So previously, I said that, there is no compiling or anything. As you can see, as soon as I click preview, the application now has a pixel perfect branding based on the style sheet that I have selected, and it has incorporated that snippet that I just dragged and dropped into the platform. And so here, what I can do is I can just enter a legal entity identifier, and this will make a call to the Glyph API via the plugin component and return all of the fields that I need for this entity. So this is going to be the first part of our build. Now, what I will want to do, and I will spend most of the time on the workflow or on the workflow capabilities. But one other field that I will add here, because we're really looking into account onboarding, is going to be the account type. So in terms of account type, there could be a retirement type of account. So this is the second part of the flow, and we could also have a brokerage type of account. Okay, so perfect. We can save this. And now what I'll do is I'll just go through my retirement flow, and I'll configure some of the simple decisioning here, where I'll just look at some specific sort of inputs to suggest a product to a client wanting to open a retirement account. And again, after that, I'll go back to the workflow. So here I'll just type in just one field here. I'll ask for the retirement time frame to the client. And what I can do is I can have 3 values here. So I can say, okay, I can say 1 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, or 10 plus years. As you can see, as I type in all of my values, the associated values is being stored in the data. And you also have the flexibility to change that, just facilitate your process for further defining the decisioning. If you needed, you could always get data from dynamic sources to ingest that radio input. So it doesn't have to be hard-coded, of course.
Odile, that's a key thing. Like, so a lot of the customers you hear is, I've got this stored in my database behind in my firewall here, could I reference it? And that's where the data reference key comes in, right? You're basically able to say, source it from the external systems in the customer's database or external third parties. And the whole goal is store it in one place. Don't replicate your reference data multiple places. There's no need to.
Absolutely. Perfect. So what I'll do here, and you'll see in Unqork, it's very easy and quick to build things. You can also copy paste some of your components. What I'll have here is just a second component for the product. So what I'll do is I'll just get some of the more retirement-based products. So in this options, I'll just get all of this sort of account type. So I'll have money market account, target date fund, and crypto OTC fund. So again, this is very specific to retirement. And this could be, of course, anything else. Then I'll drag and drop a decision component to really perform an if and then statement to suggest a product based on the selection of the retirement time frame. So what I'll do here is I'll just say, okay, this is my retirement time frame. I just need the exact value of the retirement time frame to then output a value to the product. And so the retirement time frame, in terms of the value, I could have 1 to 3. So those are the values that we have stored. And what I'll do is, if the end user selects 1, so meaning 1 to 5 years, we're going to suggest money market. If they select 5 to 10 years, we're going to suggest a target date fund. And if it's 10 plus years, we're going to suggest crypto OTC fund. The great thing about Unqork is you can test harness everything. So you could say, okay, let's see what it will render if I say 1. So of course, this is the actual value that you're looking into. And it sends you a red flag because you have not entered here any expected value. But the idea here is really to test everything that you have before you even go ahead and push it to production. Perfect. So what I'll do here is I'll continue with my flow. I'll select account type, go on to the next screen. And as you can see here, I have my second screen with my decision component being triggered on the back end and providing the suggested product based on my user selection. So this is great. It works well. But here I have 2 account types. I have retirement and I also have brokerage. And here, if I select brokerage, I will still see the retirement type of flow. And this is because my flow just has one option for the next screen. So what I'll do here is I'll just provide a title. I'll say this is retirement. And I'll go back to my application. And what I will do is I'll drag and drop a brand new screen. So this screen is going to be for the brokerage form. So perfect. I'll just create my new module, and then I'll go ahead and edit my module. So again, it's fairly easy to, to scale your application on Unqork. I can just copy that configuration, which is really the JSON document that is being created as soon as you drag and drop those components. And so what I'll do here is I'll just say that this is now brokerage. So this is my new screen, the brokerage form. And instead of looking into retirement timeframe, I'll look into risk tolerance. This resonates more with the brokerage type of account. For risk tolerance, I could have 3 values: low, medium, or high, which I will paste to the values that I store in the database. And then I'm going to just make a quick edit to the type of products that I could see here to reflect more of the brokerage type of account. And then very quickly, we talked about flexibility. You can just go back to your decisioning and just very simply change your inputs and outputs and your micro decision, and everything will be updated. And so as you can see, with traditional approaches, you would need to leverage code, and it would take, just hours to get there. In here, because everything is visual and you can test everything, it's very easy to just embed that full flow again. So now one more thing that we need to do is, this screen here is just, it lives by itself. So we need to tell the flow to go either to retirement or brokerage. So what I'll do here in order to do that is I'll leverage the gateway component within the workflow to redirect to the end user to either the retirement form or the brokerage form. So as part of the gateway, you could have as many outputs as you want. So in here, we have 2 different outputs. The first one is for the retirement flow, and the logic will be what field am I going to look at to basically redirect the end user automatically and dynamically to the retirement form. So what I'll do here is I'll just say that this is based on the end user selection on account type. And as you can see, as I type that account type, it just populates that field. And I'll do the same for brokerage. Perfect. And so as you can see, again, we're building everything live. So you see as well, how quickly we're doing all of this. So perfect. So now what I can do is, I can go back to my workflow here. I've selected retirement, so I'm seeing the retirement screen. And now I'll just switch to brokerage. And here, as you can see now, the workflow has gone through the second path here, and it just goes through the brokerage form. And I didn't even have to, refresh the screen or anything. So that means that at no point we are, disturbing any of the end user flows. We have updated that workflow in the backend to incorporate a decisioning with no disturbance on what the end user is seeing.
And Odile, I could see you have tons of fans in the comments as we're going through this. If there's anyone that wants to challenge Odile, I'm going to give it, throw it in the comment. Let's see what we could do here, because she's a master here for sure.
Awesome. So, okay, perfect. So now I would like to take this, one step further. So, in here we have, we talked about account onboarding and how challenging it could be to really scale that to a number of different account types. In some instances, we have 25 account types. So the question is, how do we support this? How do we make sure that, in addition to retirement, brokerage, we have 25 other types of accounts that are being onboarded? One solution for this is that, I would drag and drop 25 screens into the workflow. Obviously, I'm not going to do that because it's not.
And then you get that paper I talked about that you have to unroll and basically paste on the wall, right? Which I've seen. And each of those then would basically have to go back to the same point, because in your case here, you're ending it after this wealth onboarding form. But in reality, You're probably going to go to KYC. You're going to probably go do know your customer checks and basically get some evidence and upload some W-9 forms,
That's right.
W-2s. And so you'd have to merge it all back and it would become a mess, right? And you could do it for sure. And that's what the traditional tools let you do, but it's just unsupportable.
Absolutely. Typically, Gary, you're right. Most of the time, you would have that, not end here, but you would have like, a handoff node that would hand off to another workflow of maybe, proving the process or, another KYC flow. So absolutely. Perfect. So again, 25 different account types. So how do we support that? How do we support that scalability while, remaining fully scalable, flexible, and visual? So I know I just, created this, but what I'll do is I'll actually delete all of that. And what we'll do is that we'll actually drag and drop a brand new screen. And for this one, I'm just going to call this account specific form. So this one is not retirement, it's not brokerage, it's not anything else, it's account specific. And instead of leveraging the static screen type, so static means that you know exactly the screen that you want to leverage. Instead, I'm going to switch to dynamic. And this is really the power of Unqork. So in dynamic, what I will say is that I will have a field that is going to hold the unique ID of the screen that I want to show. So basically the unique ID of the module that I want to show. And I'm going to call this account module ID. So the unique ID essentially is what you will see on the URL. So this is going to be one example of the module ID for the brokerage form. And this is the one for the retirement form. Now, the idea is to say, okay, how do I tell the system that this field will hold dynamically the value? It's going to be based on the account type. So first of all, what I'll do is I'll drag and drop that, that new field, which is going to be account module ID that will hold the data.
So you created a hidden variable, so that's
yes,
just defining a var. Yep, cool.
Exactly, a hidden one. So this is not going to be visible to the end user, but this is going to be leveraged for the decisioning of your application. So what I could do is I could have a decision component holding that decisioning logic, but I want to take it one step further and thinking, okay, sometimes there are decisioning that are held in databases. So let's actually create a database that will hold that decisioning. So basically having that mapping of this is my account type, and this is the module ID that I want to map based on the account type. So what I'll do is, and again, everything is built from scratch. So I'll create a data collection and I'll call this account to module ID. And I'll have one column, which is going to be the account type, and a second one, which is going to be the module ID. So in terms of account type, for now, I have retirement, and I also have brokerage. What I'll do very simply is I'll just take the ID for, so this is brokerage, and I will paste that here. And then I will take the same one, but for retirement, and I will paste that here. I'll indicate the system that the first rows are the headers, and then I'll go ahead, save my data collection, save the settings. And now what I'll do is I'll just go back to my first screen and I'll make a call to that database. So in order to make a call to any APIs, including Unqork APIs, we leverage what we call the plugin. And I'm going to have a plugin here that I'll call plug get module ID. And this is essentially where you define the type of API that you would like to call. So again, we make API calls, and this is really our strong component as well, to be able to connect to any type of APIs, REST, SOAP, multi-part API calls. You can define them at the environment level, and this is where you can find them. In addition, we have a lot of Unqork endpoints that allows you to perform operations like getting data from a reference table. So in here, I'll just provide the name of the database that I want to get the data from. And one of the things that I'll do is, I do not want all of the data from the database. I want to reference that database with my account type. So very simply, I'm going to say that the account type field that the end user is entering should be mapped to the account type column in the database. So this is called account type. Then what I'll do is, in terms of output, so I want the call to return me the associated module ID based on the account type. So I'll say that account module ID should be mapped to the column module ID. And by the way, this is exactly how you would make any API call. So again, there is no code. What you only do is just a mapping exercise of all of the fields that you're querying that API with and the fields that you need to return. Perfect. So I'll just go ahead and save this. And now what will happen is, so at the moment I have my workflow, which is just one screen here. It makes a call to the database, returns the module ID, and dynamically it should show me the screen that I see. So here, as you can see, dynamically again, it shows me the brokerage screen because I have selected brokerage. And now if I select retirement, it's going to show me the retirement screen.
Odile, let's go back a little bit. 1 second.
Sure.
When you click previous and you said change the dropdown, was it at that point that it did the plugin and said, let me go out to this reference data and say for retirement, what's the module ID?
Exactly.
That's what you're showing.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
So you can see the data there. So it's an event driven. So as you change that dropdown, dynamically go out to an API. And that API, Odile, could be behind the firewall of a customer. It could be an external service. It could be anything. The case here was you were using our internal reference data structure, which we created because a lot of times customers don't have the ability to expose their reference data easily. It might be on a mainframe file or could be on a spreadsheet. So in this case, you could see the call was made. There we go. Okay, and then you passed in retirement. You got back the module ID. And you set that module ID then to be the next module that the workflow dynamically loads. That's amazing, by the way. I could not, I'm always in shock when I watch you do this, Odile. This is absolutely amazing.
Yes, exactly. So in here, you then store the module ID within this field here, which is essentially the field that we have in our dynamic module within the workflow. So this is all how we're sort of like abstracting everything and the decisioning. And the great part as well is, from here, let's say we're opening a new, let's say, managed account that's owned by a trust. This is where the scalability comes into place as well, where you're trying to, in fact, just scale that to new account types. So what you can do from here is you can simply add a new type. So I'll just call it trust. And what I'll do is I'll add a new module. So I'll say that this is a trust type of module and new account. And so once I do that, what I can do again, what I'll do is I'll just copy paste, the flow for the brokerage type of account, but I'll just call this managed account. And then trust. Okay, I'll save this like that. And then in here, I'll just update my database with the associated module ID. And then from here, one last thing that I need to do is just to add that new account type into the dropdown. So I'll just say trust. And then from here, I'll simply, reload this page. And I'll close the console. And now I have my new account type that I'm selecting here. And if I click next, as you can see, my managed account trust. So the brand new account type with its own reflexive logic is now live into the application. So just the process of doing that, typically when we talk with clients, it takes so much time. It takes months, it takes years. And we did it in, just 2 minutes. So this is really the power of the platform.
What's really interesting also is, this concept of what is the role of the business, what is the role of technology. I think everyone watching this, you make it look extremely simple. That's the comments I'm seeing and the feedback, and you have a technical mindset, you have a technical background, but you could easily see how you could empower the business to own a part of what you just did, right? I could actually see business, you go in and you could define the almost like the data model for each of the products in this form, and IT owns the entire infrastructure system around it, so they could actually add products dynamically, like a product master, and automatically empower them to take a piece control back, and they own that one, and then they're participating. It's no more about, SDLC or versus agile or with waterfall, or it's about like they're actually participating and helping create a component of this. But when you definitely you need to vision it as a technical mindset, which is amazing. And an architect here, I see a lot of the comments I recognize as architects I've worked with in the past are coming from this, which is great to see. Is there any, so Odile, before we wrap this up, and is there any questions? Anyone wants to see anything? Throw it in the comments real quick. So Odile, if you could, let's also show real quick, how do you compare versions? Just you added that account type field. Can you just show how we store this and actually, because part of this has to be how easy it is to maintain and see changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So as soon as you create a new module and start to to configuring within this module, all of the changes will be saved. And what you can have is basically a timestamp as well as the user that has made the change. And then you can click on compare and start comparing, all of the changes that were made. So in here, because I copy pasted this whole configuration, I'm seeing that based on the first change, I've added, all of these components. And then you can quickly sort of, copy a specific version. Maybe this is a version that you will need to work on, to look at, or you'll want to restore the application into this version specifically. So multiple things that you can do there.
Yeah, which is amazing because, again, you could say we have a consistent workflow for across our entire company with all the products we sell, with all the regions and countries we operate in. We own this consistent workflow, and then you could actually empower individuals to own their pieces, and you could actually see who changed what, which is what you just showed us. We could actually see who modified what. You could roll back if you needed to. It's all built in. And the whole concept of workspaces you open up with is almost like a Git package, a Bitbucket package. It's a way to basically version source group, which is amazing. And Odile, with that, any last things to show us, or?
So this is pretty much everything that I wanted to show, and really the three key things that I wanted to highlight is one, through the workflows you can get extremely complex, but that also means that you can change that complexity very quickly. And the third really important component is that you can scale that also very easily. So this is really what I wanted to show Gary today.
Awesome, Odile, absolutely amazing. I know there's a question popped in about security and threat levels, which the previous LinkedIn Live we did last week, we had our CISO, Marcos, come join us and present. Security is our number one concern. It's, we come from the corporate world, banking world, we understand it. And so you should definitely check out that other LinkedIn Live, and you can find the section there at security, which was really discussed in detail. It's amazing. Odile, you are so impressive, just a master of this, and we can start a masterclass series, I guess. This would be a lot of fun. Sure. Thank you for joining, Odile. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And everyone have a great weekend. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.